before we move on to kind of the nutritional tie-in with this stuff, I did drop a little question
Yeah,
box into Instagram
yeah.
beforehand. And for anybody who wants to get involved with the next one, the handle is at Coach Sam Forget. I'll obviously link to your handle afterwards as well. And one of the questions we got was how to train around knee pain, because obviously the limitation for a lot of people, especially former athletes or people who haven't exercised in a while, doing something that's more of like an athletically driven workout is like everything in this workout, any sort of jump or lateral bound, or even just a basic box squat, my knees hurt. So it deters me from even wanting to get into the
Yeah,
gym. So I'm sure you see that with probably at least half your clients, at least at
decent
first. So
amount. Yeah.
how do you go about overcoming that?
I mean, I would say just to scale things back, and I could give a general answer to this. I would always say like, yo, let me see what's going on. That's always my number one thing. If somebody says, hey, I have knee pain, let's go through just a quick assessment and see exactly what's going on and what could be the root cause of the knee pain. Because as you may know, it's never usually at the site of the pain, right? It could be something going on either below that chain or just working its way up the chain. So one, start with some sort of assessment to understand what's going on, where could this issue be coming from, or what could be causing the issue, and then going from there. But to train around it specifically, I would say to just do things that are a little bit more low impact, right? Scale things back a bit. As I mentioned before, being able to isometrically hold a split stance position is a basic, just foundational thing that everybody should be able to do. So if you're somebody who's suffering from knee pain and you're doing that, and then there may be knee pain while you're doing that, then we got to look at other things as well. But I usually start from one, working low impact, anything that's isometric, and then sort of going from there. So I would say isometric movements are great, whether it's a static lunge hold position and finding a position that may be suitable for your knee. Working some eccentrically loaded exercises. So if you're able to eccentrically manage force, that's usually an indicator for building strength, etc.
Kurt, real
And then
quick.
you go about, so go ahead.
Sorry to interject. For a person who's not sure what a low
Oh,
eccentric is, let's.
yes. My
Yeah.
bad, my bad.
Oh, you're good, brother.
So started with the isometric position. That's just literally holding like a basic split squat position, back knee, let's say about 2 inches off the floor, and just holding that position right
So
there,
not
right?
moving. I'm
Usually
just holding that for time.
not moving
Yep. Okay.
whatsoever. So if somebody is unable to stabilize themselves in that position, then we know we got to start from there. And if you're having knee pain, it could be from lack of stability at the foot, ankle, working its way up to the knee, could be something going on at the hip. So isometric holds are usually like one of my basic regressions for any particular movement, right? So starting from there, and then let's say, for instance, doing some eccentrically loaded things, which is essentially controlling the negative portion, or how would I put it, from that same split lunge position. If I were to have you be, let's say, in that standing position or that taller position, slowly going down, let's say 5-second hold or 5-second eccentric or downward movement to that lunge, to the bottom of that lunge, that's an eccentric movement right there from that lunge position. So I look at just managing one, started from very regressed basics and sort of building up the intensity, maybe managing the amount of load and volume that we're using. And that's one way that you could sort of work around the pain. But specifically, I would say start with some sort of assessment, see what could be the reasons for the knee pain, and then going from there. If you have to go see, a physical therapist or some sort of strength coach, movement coach, etc., find one in your area, see them, go through just a basic assessment, and then sort of game plan from there.
Smart.
Right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to just guess and say like, oh, it's probably just this. Yeah, it could be, but it could also be something a lot worse. So you never know. I would say always refer out, get assessed, see exactly what's going on, and then go from there.
In the meantime, I'm glad you mentioned this again. You can likely do something to train around it. Like as you're getting it
Yes.
diagnosed, like you don't have to do nothing. You'd rather operate at 60% capacity with a lot of loaded isometrics, eccentrics, maybe more upper
Mm-hmm.
body focused work. Do like
Yeah.
70% of what your average workout would be, rather than, I think the mistake that most people make is waiting until they feel 100%.
The
And,
percent better. Yeah.
if you've been training in any, I don't say in any capacity, if you've been training hard at some point in your life or you have an athletic background, it's very likely that there's almost always at least a minor ache or pain
Yeah.
or So I'm not saying that you should settle for a habitual state of pain. That's something to address. But it's generally going to be like, all right, Kurt, we're benching today. My shoulder feels not great. Maybe we swap to a floor press today, or we're supposed to do heavy, RDLs or something. Doesn't feel great. Let's do a back extension, glute dominant with a pause. So there's usually like a slight modification that you can make. And then the only other thing I'd add to the training around knee pain is, and I know you know this, Kurt, but most people can still typically do something hip dominant. So if we're looking at an RDL, if we're looking at back extension, bridges, thrusts, something where if you're looking at it from a side angle, we have a vertical shin. So the knee isn't tracking too far forward. Not that that's inherently bad, but it's generally a quick fix for how do I still get some lower body work in. Like you said, a lot of times too, the knee pain is a symptom of a bigger problem. Like, are the muscles around that area weaker? So maybe if we warm up the hamstrings a little bit more beforehand, we end up moving pain-free anyway. So I'm so glad you mentioned that as well.
Of course, definitely. And I think one thing to mention too, my bad, just real quick, I'll touch on this. Just pain is multifaceted. So it may not be as simple as you might think. And you can still work around pain. Like, that's one thing people, like you mentioned, like it's not, you don't need to be 100% better. Like, granted, it depends on what that pain feels like and what, maybe if there is an injury, what that looks like. But pain is just your body's way of trying to protect you from something going on, right? And you can still work around that pain. There's ways and means. So, for anybody who's listening to this, working through pain, you want to still be able to put that work in, albeit you want to make sure that you're doing the right things, right? So keep that in mind.
Of course. And to add one last thing to that, I also feel a lot of people don't realize that a workout doesn't have to feel amazing to get a result. If we look at physiologically what a workout does, we have a stressor or a stimulus, and we have an adaptation or benefit that comes from that, no matter how it feels. Again, we're not advocating that you train through a torn meniscus and do these crazy split. Like, we're not saying that, but we're going into bench. My shoulder hurts, swap to a floor press. That's a little less shoulder dominant. May not necessarily feel great for the day, but I always say your body doesn't discriminate. It's not going, you know what, Kurt didn't fire on all cylinders today. He's not going to get the benefit of this workout. You're still going to get the benefit. And if you look at big picture, like out of every 10 workouts, I mean, you would say what, maybe 2 feel awesome, 6 feel fine, and 2 feel like shit. Like, so if your metric is always, if I don't feel perfect, I'm not going to get after it, you're likely never going to make consistent progress. It's almost like nutrition. We'll get into that in a second. If your metric for continuing with good nutrition is I have to be perfect with every choice, it's unlikely you ever get anything out of your nutrition. You have to be comfortable with, depending on your goals, I'm going to be 70 to 85% solid most of the time rather than perfect almost never.
Exactly.